All right. Happy fiscal new year. It's the February 1st product group conversation. I'm Scott Williamson, EVP of product. Thanks for joining. Happy to take questions. Don't see any yet, so let's pause.
Scott, I see slide 11 is at risk, the new group namespace activation metrics. Maybe you talk through that slide, maybe?
Okay. So slide namespace activation metrics. So our four growth groups have relatively new KPIs that they're driving. One is around the trial conversion rate, one's around the adoption of Create, one's around inviting team members, one's around adopting Verify. I think the one that is the furthest from the goal is the trial conversion rate. Is Sam or I see Mike? Do you have any more context on that one in particular?
Sorry, on the trial conversion rate one, Scott?
Yeah, that one's the furthest off. It looks like we're ahead on the users invited and pretty close on the adoption ones.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So there's a few things impacting this. The biggest one being that we're drastically increasing the denominator here of group trials that are being started, which are known to have a much higher conversion rate. So we're really trying to determine what our new baseline should be, because for context, personal trials upgrade at near 0%. So we're just enabling all trials to be group trials, which will drastically increase the denominator, and we should see an overall increase in the trial conversion, or the absolute number of trials that convert, but the rate itself will go down.
Thanks for that, Sam.
By the way, I love this slide. I love how easy it is to kind of see all the growth activities and how coherent it is. There's one thing to improve. I would say target. Our target is not that it's exactly a percentage, it's that it's bigger than a certain percentage. And I love that all the graphs here, we want them to see up and to the right, which is the intuitive thing, but just out of an abundance of clarity, consider adding target is bigger than 42% instead of an exact percentage. We do have a few targets at GitLab where we're aiming for an exact percentage. So I want to make sure that that's clear. It's great if it's greater than that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that, Sid.
Thanks, Hila. Other questions?
Now I'll ask one. It's not in the agenda yet. Sorry, I can try and type it in after I ask. I'm looking at slide 8. And it says that we hit an all-time high of 13.9 million in ARR through our web store, and the previous high was considerably less than that. So can you talk about what the difference is? What do we think drove that up so significantly?
I see Justin's out there. You want that one?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I haven't dug into it too deeply yet. One culprit. One reason.
The opposite of culprit.
Had CI, the ability to purchase CI minutes and storage now for a couple of months. And so we're seeing a big increase in transaction volume, individual transactions. That makes sense because you're buying smaller dollar things more regularly. But there is a little bit of seasonality in this too. I noticed last year, a similar trend occurred where it started to increase towards the end of the quarter. But I think overall, more SMB customers are comfortable purchasing self-service, and we're seeing that impact.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think the fulfillment team should get a bunch of credit. They've been working on pain points. They knocked a bunch of them down this quarter. There's some more to go next quarter, but those all make a difference and they all add up, and a whole bunch of small things can remove friction that formerly might have caused someone to hop out of the process and ask for help. They're able to get more customers are able to get through. I think that's part of it too.
The big one.
Add on there as well. I can add this in the comments. on the growth side, we added onboarding for users and pushed users into groups. So we saw more of those previous users that wouldn't have upgraded on their own. And we also implemented a new checkout experience in partnership with the fulfillment team that matches the direct to buy purchase experience on about.gitlab. And we saw an increase in the conversion rate after doing that.
Wonderful. These are huge user experience wins. People don't want to have to call us to buy something. So that's awesome.
I was going to add too, the big one I'm looking forward to is when we move those purchase flows out of customers.gitlab.com into the actual product. It's not a great experience to have to go to a different website to purchase the product you're using. And so once we're able to do that, I'll expect a bigger increase as well.
Sid, next one.
Yeah, we have two metrics, TMAU and UMAU. UMAU is unique users and TMAU is total monthly active users. I keep getting confused. Every time I think about total, I keep getting confused that we're kind of double counting people if they use multiple stages. Maybe it's wishful thinking, keep hoping we have 4 million users. So I think if we had only one metric, TMAU would be great, but to differentiate the two, unique is pretty clear. That's the unique number of people. I would propose we rename TMAU to CMAU to say cumulative, to accentuate that we're double counting people. But that's just based on me having trouble to differentiate the two. I wonder what other people think.
Does anybody else have an opinion on that?
I'll just verbalize that when I hear the word cumulative, I think of it as cumulative over time.
Over
That's
time,
typically how
yeah.
we think of it. And so it is a little bit confusing, but there's probably a better word than total.
Yeah, maybe double counting, DMAU. Duplicative monthly active users.
I can open up an issue and we can kind of talk through terminology to try to capture that and find the right name.
That'd be great. But is it a problem? Does people like, oh no, TMAU totally makes sense that you're double counting people who use multiple stages?
I'd love to hear from non-product people. I feel like as product folks have been using that for long enough that it's kind of ingrained.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we always recognized that this was confusing. So we had an even harder to pronounce metric. We had called it SOS mouse, sum of stage mouse, and then that was too hard to pronounce. So we used TMAU. So yes, we should try to find a better.
Cool. Yeah, so the problem is something that this group also saw. Okay, cool. Slide 23, why is there such a big gap between stages for organization between, oh, I thought this was SaaS and self-managed, but it's between unpaid and paid, which indicates that the more stages you use, the more likely you are to be a paid customer. Correlation is not causation. Sorry.
Yeah, I was pleased about those numbers. 3.7 for paid was a bit higher than I would have guessed, but it just shows you the power of the long tail that's using one stage. Really drags the average down, because when you look at stages per user, it's closer to 1.5. So we just have a lot of users that are closer to 1 that pull it down. But when we get a healthy customer, they're using 3.7. And so I do think that's a favorable sign.
So the graph, I remembered this one, and that was my question about it. It's on 24. It's between SaaS and self-managed. And you see that self-managed, the stages per user are even higher than on paid SaaS, which is interesting.
I can talk a little bit on that. So you're seeing why self-managed SPA is higher than self-managed SaaS SPA paid.
Yeah, I think I think 23 and 24. What will help me is a graph that has kind of the 4 box of self-managed and paid and unpaid. So those 4 variants plus all of self-managed, all of SaaS, all of paid, all of unpaid, and then each has a line. So there would be, and then total overall. So there would be 7 lines on one graph, stages per organization for those 7 variants.
You basically want to understand how paid versus non-paid, and that SaaS versus self-managed, and then
all of them, because the current graph design is not, it presents it as if this bar is a different metric than the lines, and it's not. It's the same metric. So I think it should be, the overall one should be a line as well. And then if we're doing lines, why split it up between 2 graphs? Why don't we in this graph do overall SaaS, self-managed, paid, non-paid, and every variant of the 2?
Okay, we can try to do that. The one thing I want to point out is that the reason why we tend to separate SaaS and self-managed is because the definition of SPAL is different. The stages included, now the definition is the same, but the small metric available in SaaS and in self-managed are slightly different. We're working on getting them consistent. So that's why comparing between SaaS and self-managed at this moment is not that comparable. It's better we look at SaaS and self-managed separately.
Okay, that would be, and I recognize that slide 24 is work in progress, but it would be good to like add that information, like, hey, measuring a different number of stages.
Yeah, we have that in the notes. It's just not, it's not that obvious. I think it's hard for you to quickly catch it. If you look at the notes, it says the stages included. Not this one. If you go to 22 and 23.
Okay, but this compares SaaS and self-managed, so that was. Okay, so this node basically should be.
On 23 under notes there is tells you which stages are there.
Cool. Oh, but this is that SaaS. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Something like this. Cool.
Sid, my question for you. Do you foresee the SPAL between self-managed and SaaS will vary, or they should be very similar?
I expect them to be pretty similar. So that's why I'm like calling out like they're so different. And now it's a data problem. It's not.
Okay.
We're not sure yet. So I'd be interesting to look at them when we're comparing apples to apples.
Okay. The other thing we notice is that the absolute number of SaaS namespaces or organizations is much more than self-managed. So when we blend them together, it will be more towards the SaaS side.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've got the next question. It would be helpful to see something along the lines of the stage adoption, like you've got in 22 and 23, for just Ultimate, to be able to better understand Secure and Plan, which tend to drive Ultimate, and because Secure is very watered down when you look at all of the tiers.
And are you talking about stages per organization cut that way, Cindy?
By tier.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do have that. We didn't show that here. We can share that with you, or we can add it next time. It's just too many slides, so we didn't include everything.
I'll touch base with you. I'd love to see that in preparation for SCO.
Okay.
Thanks, Hila. Other questions? Victor, when you're ready.
Yeah, I will say it instead of typing. It's just a personal impression that to me, slide 30 is about the hiring location factors that we do. And my personal impression is that we are extremely West Coast focused.
Extremely what focused?
West Coast focused, US focused. And being from Europe, I might fit it more than people who are in the US. And clearly now that we have much lower new hires, number of new hires, it's hard to say what an average is because the average is one is actually the total. But that was my personal impression the past months and I just wanted to share it. If you can be more cautious about it, that would be great, I think.
Yeah, I agree. We do have a sort of West Coast heavy team. We haven't hired that many roles lately, so the N is low here. In the searches we're doing now, we really prioritize low location factor and diversity in hiring. But some of our roles have been outstanding a long time, and we've relaxed the low location factor dimension first before the diversity one. And so anyway, we definitely made a big effort to look around the world for talent. If the search goes on too long and we can't find the skill set we look for, we start to look in geographies that might be of a higher location factor where there's a higher likelihood of finding the skill set we're looking for. Some of the roles we've hired have been very specialized. For example, we just hired a senior director of pricing. And we looked around the world, it took a long time, ended up back in the Bay Area. There just aren't that many senior pricing leaders. I think we found a great one, but happens to be from the Bay Area. So some roles are a bit easier to find globally, some are pretty tough.
Yeah, clearly.
Got one comment I'll add. I know that our awesome recruitment team, Chris and Matt, host product source-a-thons, and I don't think we do a great job of distributing those to every team member or making them available for team members in different time zones. So I can take an action to work with them to make sure our future source-a-thons are more inclusive of all team
That's a great
members and time
idea,
zones.
Kenny. Yeah, we have done a fair number, but I agree. I don't typically see the invite go out, so that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Other questions? While we're waiting, if folks are from the field, congratulations on a really good Q4. Exciting results. I'll let Mike share that out across the company, but Q4 looked really good. Congrats. All right. Thanks, y'all, for joining. Appreciate your time. Have a great fiscal year.